It's gone away now, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't know how to put my hand up.
I haven't got the hand facility on mine, so
right.
you have to look for my hand.
Okay, great. Well, I think we'll kick off. Oh, good morning, Councillor Finch. I think we'll kick off if that's all right, as we are apparently quorate, so that's great. So welcome all to the Accountability Board meeting. I just want to, if we could, from a process point of view, if you would be able to introduce yourselves so that members of the public know who you are. And then I'll just remind people, if you could put your microphones on mute when you're not speaking. And what we're going to do in terms of raising hands when we're voting, when you're voting, please could you raise your hand physically to the camera, and that way we can ensure that we can count all of the votes. And just to remind you, obviously, that members of the public can join the meeting and officers are listening to the discussion. So if we could first of all just go around and introduce yourselves. So if we could start with Councillor Simmons, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Rupert Simmons, the Cabinet Lead for the Economy in East Sussex. And as I said earlier to you, representing Keith Blazier, who's engaged in a leadership conference this morning.
Thank you, welcome. Councillor Coxall.
Yeah, Mark Coxall, for Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Strategic Highways, and I'm deputising today for our leader, Robert Gledhill, for Thurrock.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers.
Rodney Chambers, Medway Council.
Thank you. Councillor Woodley.
Right, yeah, Councillor Ron Woodley, Deputy Leader, Southend-on-Sea Borough Council.
Simon.
Morning, everybody. Simon Cook, Chief Executive of Mid Kent College, representing further education and skills.
Thank you. Councillor Finch.
Sorry, was it me?
Sorry, yes. Could you not hear me? Yes, sorry.
Councillor David Finch, Leader of Essex County Council.
Thank you. Rosemary.
Rosemary Nunn, Greenwich University, representing higher education.
Thank you. Welcome all. We are expecting also Councillor Gough, and I think that's it, is it? Oh, that's all. That's the only other person we're expecting. Okay, great. Thank you. So first of all, if we could go to the minutes of the last meeting on the 18th of September. Is everybody happy with those minutes?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. If you're not speaking, please could you put your on mute? Thank you. Okay. Agreed. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, and also could I now ask for declarations of interest in accordance with the Members' Code of Conduct, please? Anybody does? Councillor Simmons.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would declare an interest as a director of Sea Change Sussex, which is involved in one of the projects being considered this morning.
Thank you. And from a legal point of view, Charlotte, does that mean we need to, does anybody need to withdraw from the meeting, or is that all right? Can any other officer help me if Charlotte's not there?
Yeah, sorry, Charlotte's having some technical difficulties. No, as it's a non-pecuniary interest, Councillor Simmons does not need to leave for that part of the discussion.
It's good to have that confirmed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so as you, some of you may know, we have had a public question, which I am now going to read out, and then I will also read our response to that question. The question comes into two parts. So I'll read the question first and then our response. So the first part of the question is, in December 2012, SELEP issued a press release in which it said that North Queensway Innovation Park in Hastings had the potential of creating 865 jobs. In September 2015, Sea Change Sussex claimed on their website that the site would provide space for up to 300 employees in total. So far, no jobs have been created. However, SELEP is now planning to award the Sea Change Sussex a further 3.5 million for the site, which, according to the documents to be presented to the Accountability Board meeting on the 16th of October, is now expected to create 75 jobs. Given the Sea Change was given 1.5 million loan, 0.5 million of which remains outstanding for the project was some 8 years ago with a view to creating 865 jobs, but has created none at all. How can SELEP justify giving the company a further 3.5 million of public money for the same project? The response is a £1.5 million GPF loan was awarded to East Sussex County Council for the North Queensway project. The funding was awarded to bring forward site access and enabling infrastructure. The indirect jobs that could be created once the site was fully developed were estimated to be 865. The works funded by the GPF loan have been completed, but there have been delays to the development of the site due to unforeseen problems with drainage and consequent planning issues. This board has been informed that Sea Change are taking steps to address these issues, and the full development of the site is still expected to happen, and that development is still expected to deliver 865 indirect jobs. The 3.5 million GBF investment brings forward part of the development of this site. Whilst it is anticipated that private investment will deliver the development of the site, the GBF investment is expected to bring forward a proportion of the 865 jobs more quickly. The GBF investment was identified due to a pressing need for modern manufacturing space in the area and to assist with COVID-19 recovery. The award of the funding from SELEP is being made to East Sussex County Council. And then the second part of the question is, secondly, what comeback will there be if Sea Change, having taken £4 million of public money for the project, 3.5 million from the GBF, plus 0.5 million, which may never be repaid from the previous loan, fails to create even the latest predictions of 75 jobs? Will Sea Change be required to repay the money? Our response is, all funding issued by East Sussex County Council, all funding issued by Essex County Council on behalf of SELEP is done so under a legal agreement with the recipient. Getting Building Fund legal agreements have not yet been finalised, and therefore we cannot comment on the provisions therein at this time. For all capital investment schemes, there is a requirement to develop a benefit realisation plan, which is embedded within the business case submission. The benefits realisation plan monitors the impacts of the project for up to a 5-year period post-completion. This will include monitoring of the numbers of jobs created. All of this information is reported back quarterly to the South East Local Enterprise Partnership Accountability Board and Strategic Board. Thank you. So that deals with item 4 on the agenda. We'd like to move on now to item 5, which is about a report to consider the award of the 13.803 million Getting Building Fund projects to 7 projects. And just to remind you that the remaining 26 Getting Building Funding projects are scheduled to come to the November Accountability Board meeting for consideration of that. So the November board meeting will be a very full agenda. Okay, I'm going to hand over now to Helen, if you could take us through, please.
Yes, thank you. So as has been mentioned, we're looking at the award of funding to 7 Getting Building Fund projects today. As full project details are set out within the report and the appendices, I'm just going to cover each project in a couple of sentences, and then I'll pass over to Steve Bishop from Steer, who will give a summary of the outcome of their assessment of the business cases. So the first project under consideration today is the acceleration of full fibre broadband deployment in very rural and hard to reach premises. This project is seeking investment of £680,000. The project seeks to implement fast deployment of ultra-fast broadband premises in very rural and hard to reach places in Essex, which currently have broadband speeds of less than 30 megabytes per second. The project has a key role to play in enabling residents and businesses in rural properties to adapt their working methods in line with changes brought about as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, offering individuals greater opportunities in the labour market and enabling businesses to embrace new trading models. The second project is Britain Farm Redevelopment, Learning Skills and Employment Hub in Medway. This project is seeking investment of 1.99 million. This project will bring forward an innovative adult learning, skills and employment hub within Gillingham High Street, alongside public realm improvements and the delivery of 44 new affordable homes. The delivery of the project will help to address existing skills shortages across Medway and will assist local residents to secure the skills and qualifications needed to significantly improve their employment opportunities. The project will also help to reinvigorate Gillingham High Street, attracting new businesses, leading to the creation of new jobs. The third project is the extension of full fibre broadband rollout in Essex to reach rural and hard to reach premises. And this project is seeking investment of 1.82 million. This project seeks to extend the Superfast Essex rollout programme to enable a greater number of rural and hard to reach premises to connect to ultra-fast broadband. As with the acceleration of full fibre broadband deployment project, this project has a key role to play in enabling a greater number of residents and businesses in rural properties to adapt their working methods in line with changes as a result of COVID. The fourth project is the Fast Track Business Solutions for the Hastings Manufacturing Sector project, which, as previously mentioned, is seeking investment of 3.5 million. This project will deliver 4,000 square metres of modern business space on the North Queensway Innovation Park. The project is seeking to address the pressing need for modern manufacturing premises in the local area to support and retain existing manufacturing industry and to provide the capacity to attract businesses to relocate or expand to East Sussex. As previously mentioned, a Growing Places Fund loan of £1.5 million has previously been awarded to support the creation of a new junction to access the Innovation Park and to support delivery of preliminary site infrastructure. To date, £1 million of this loan has been repaid. The fifth project is the Restoring the Glory of the Winter Garden, which is seeking investment of 1.6 million. The Winter Garden is located within the Devonshire Quarter in Eastbourne, which is an area that has seen significant investment in recent years. The project will restore the Winter Garden to its former glory and will ensure its longevity and visitor experience benefits future generations. Once the work is complete, the Winter Garden will predominantly focus on hosting live music events and banquets and will contribute to a higher value visitor economy and provision of enhanced cultural offer for residents. The sixth project is the Observer Building in Hastings. This is phase 1B of the project and is seeking investment of 1.713 million. This project will see the Observer Building return to highly productive use after sitting empty and increasingly derelict for 35 years. As you'll remember, the project was awarded £1.75 million from the Growing Places Fund at the September board meeting. Together, the Growing Places Fund and Getting Building Fund investment will support the renovation of the lower 4 floors of the building. Once the building has been fully renovated, it will offer a variety of uses, including commercial, leisure and residential. The project seeks to offer opportunities for those in the hardest to reach economically deprived communities in Hastings and has a key role to play in catalysing the revitalisation of Hastings Town Centre. The final project under consideration is the extension of the existing Association of South Essex Local Authorities Local Full Fibres Network project, which is seeking investment of 2.5 million. This project will build upon an existing DCMS funded project and will extend delivery and access to broadband fibre connectivity across South Essex. The project will offer access to low-cost, high-speed broadband, which will aid job retention by reducing business costs through enabling flexible and remote working, and will reduce the need for travel by enabling a growth in video conferencing. There is one key risk that needs to be flagged in relation to the award of funding to these projects, and that relates to the receipt of the second tranche of Getting Building Fund funding from government. At this stage, the second tranche of funding has been allocated to SELEP, but remains subject to confirmation from government that the funding will be transferred in 2021-22. There is therefore a risk that the second tranche of funding will not be received, which could present a risk to the completion of those projects which are due to be delivered over the 2-year period. I'll now hand over to Steve from Steer to run through the outcome of their assessment of the projects.
Thanks, Helen. Steve.
Thank you very much. Sorry for my outburst earlier, trying to get my house in order. To build on what Rhiannon said, but in a slightly different order, I'll start with our assessment of the schemes that we deem to present high value for money and high certainty. And those schemes are the acceleration of full fibre broadband deployment in very rural or hard to reach premises, Britain Farm redevelopment, learning skills and employment hub, extension of the full fibre broadband rollout in Essex to reach rural and hard to reach premises, fast track business solutions for the Hastings manufacturing sector, and is observer building Hastings phase 1B. All of these schemes, business cases, demonstrate a reasonable and proportionate approach and a robust method and case for investment. All the scheme business cases have considered the risks of COVID-19 and suitable mitigation. All support jobs growth and a green recovery, and all present a robust case that they're deliverable by the end of March 2022. There is one scheme that is, our assessment is that it has high value for money with high to medium certainty, and that's restoring the glory of the Winter Garden. Again, a reasonable and proportionate and robust approach. Risks of COVID-19 and mitigation have been considered suitably, supports jobs growth and green recovery, deliverable by 2022, but the benefit cost ratio sits at 2.0 to 1, so only just within the high value for money category as required by the LEP Zone Assurance Framework. So it would be subject, if any downside risk were realised, it would most likely fall into a lower value for money category. And then the final scheme is the ASELA Local Full Fibre Network. A very strong strategic case has been made for the scheme, and previously a reasonable and proportionate approach and robust method and case for investment has been made for a successful funding bid to the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sports. However, for the GBF allocation specifically, some assessment has been conducted to quantify the impacts on the scheme, but not to the extent that it has derived a benefit cost ratio. However, our assessment is that it would most likely present a high or very high value for money assessment, and there are challenges in such innovative schemes to fully demonstrate benefit cost ratios, but we do need to flag that we have not reviewed a benefit cost ratio specifically for the additionality of the GBF allocation to this scheme.
Thank you. Thank you. So, board members, do you have any questions, comments, anything you'd like to say about any of these projects? Let's take them all at once. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Sarah. I would like to talk about the Britain Farm redevelopment. This was on the stocks by Medway before the impact of COVID-19 was known on the employment market. And because we wanted this because we needed to, we were so short of the right skills in Medway to enable our relatively small businesses to grow, and many of them wanted to grow, but they couldn't get the skills, and therefore we came up with this initiative. It is now even more important that we proceed with this, and I would commend what we've called an innovative scheme to help with the impacts of COVID-19, particularly on the in the skills and employment area. I was only yesterday at a meeting where it was being discussed whether this sort of initiative should be taken up by every district, every area certainly as far as Kent is concerned, because we are all in the same situation, and it's going to get even worse as far as skills and skills retraining is concerned, once we know what the impact of the finishing of the current furlough scheme, which of course we all know is at the end of this month, and we don't know what the impact of that is going to be, but I'm sure it's going to be adverse. So I'm commending this as a worthy support of the getting building fund, because I think that's what the government wanted the fund to be. One of the things the government wanted the fund to be used for, and as far as I'm concerned, I would commend it to my colleagues as agreeing to the award of 1.99 million.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Does Councillor Simmons?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would start by saying that East Sussex is very much in favour of all 7 projects proceeding. I would elaborate slightly in favour of the Winter Garden project. This is part of a much larger project of the Devonshire Park complex, and this will facilitate a very sensible offer of a convention centre, which is something seriously lacking in the county. All told, it will provide a suitable venue for any serious convention prospect. So this will bring an enormous advantage to Eastbourne as a visitor centre, and the adjacent hotels will also benefit. So I would very much recommend to my colleagues that this is a substantiated case and well worth your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Does anybody else have any questions? Simon, and then Councillor Finch, and then Councillor Goff.
Thanks, Sarah. Sarah, if I can, if you indulge, I've got 3 questions really, all quite separate. The first question, I was a bit concerned, Helen, you mentioned that the second tranche is potentially at risk of not coming through. And what we're looking at today are 6, or sorry, that we're looking at these projects. I think you said there are another 6 that are due to come to us in November. So will that second tranche not coming through have a potential impact on those that we're due to look in November? I'm just a bit concerned we're not looking at all of them at the same time, and we're only looking at these ones now.
Just to clarify, it's 26 we'll be looking at in November. Helen.
So, okay, so just change my question a bit. Why aren't we looking at them all together in one go if there's a risk to the money that may well come through in the second tranche?
Rhiannon, Helen, one of you.
Should I take that one? So yeah, so far we've received £42.5 million state, and the remaining second tranche of funding is due to come forward next April. The way that government's done it for both Getting Building Fund and previously Local Growth Fund is they only award funding on an annual basis. So they've provisionally allocated another £42.5 million next financial year. We haven't yet received that funding or received grant determination letters or any kind of commitment, I guess, contractual commitment from government that that funding will be forthcoming. I suppose with the Local Growth Fund, the board in effect accepted the risk that that was being awarded annually. So from 2015, every year that was awarded annually. But I guess the board in effect took the risk that that funding would be forthcoming. However, at the beginning of this financial year, we didn't receive all of our local growth funds, as you'll all remember, and we went through the painful process of deciding how we would allocate the funding that we did receive. Eventually, we did receive the full waiver funding for local growth funds, but we did need to demonstrate to government the spend of that full LGF allocation within year. I think on the basis that for the Getting Building Fund, we have to spend the funding within financial years, and it's very strict around that. What we might see, and just speculating here, is the fact that we might need to demonstrate to government that we've fully spent that Getting Building Fund before they release that final tranche. The reason we're not bringing forward all the business cases to this meeting is just because they're going through STIS assessment at the moment, and it's just so the board isn't sort of overwhelmed with all 34 projects coming in at once. We're trying to do it on a phased basis, so that projects that are ready can start progressing, and those that are working on their business cases can come forward in future meetings. In terms of funding decision making today, yes, there is a risk. We're awarding this funding at the moment, but without that certainty of the next year's tranche of funding. That does mean that scheme promoters may progress projects, and I'm sure they will need to progress projects, with there being this risk that that next tranche of funding isn't forthcoming. Government has allocated it, but we do not have contracts in place for that funding to come from to kind of absolutely secure that funding for next financial year. So yes, there is a risk that we start progressing these projects without that contractual arrangement in place with government for next year's funding. So that is one of the key risks to be noted as we approve these projects, and our contracts in place between the accountable body and each of the partner authorities does state that is dependent on us receiving the funding from the central government. So Suzanne, if you want to add anything further on that.
I would just say it was ever thus. It's been like this all the way through the LGF. There's been annual funding agreements, and we've not known until February or March in some occasions how much we're getting the next year. But it is allocated, and I think the assessment sort of across the different by the different officers is that the chances of the allocation not being made are fairly small. We know this is a key policy piece for government, and they really want the Getting Building Fund to be successful. So the risk is there. It needs to be flagged, but I think we feel fairly comfortable to move with that risk.
Sarah, I did have two more, but I'm happy to come back later on just so you can give others if you want to.
No, why don't we just do all of your questions at once, and then I'll move on to Councillor Finch. Thank you.
Question number 2, I guess, really is around those three that relate to broadband. I think I'm surprised we're not seeing more come through, because that's a really key infrastructure thing for us in the current purpose. And from what I understand with GBF, we should really be looking at COVID-related issues. It would be good if we saw more of those coming through, but I guess that's down for the LEP board to look at. But I just say, in terms of our stewardship of public money and the accountability of public money, that seems to me to be a real priority of GBF. So I'd encourage those that we've already got in front of us, and any more that may well then come out from other reallocations of funds that we've got. So that's not really a question, but a statement, I guess. The third question, I guess, is you said, Steve, about the rating for the winter gardens around the economic impact. So I'm just not clear on what the economic impact of that particular bid is, and I'm only concerned about it in the light of there may not be enough money for some of the other bids later on down the road. An economic impact will be really important for some of these bids. So I don't know if anybody can expand further on what the economic impact of that particular bid is for me.
Steve or Helen, and I just wanted to also check with Rhiannon. I think we do have some more digital infrastructure projects coming forward in the next tranche. Am I right, or have I?
Yeah, there's also a project approved at the last board meeting as well. I think there are other ways of investment that have gone into digital connectivity as well that we've seen. So some of these projects have been kind of bridging the gap in the offer, particularly in rural areas. So there's a kind of bit more of a niche kind of specialism, some of these projects that we're considering today.
Thank you. So is someone, Steve or Helen, are you able to answer that question about economic impact?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Simon, the scheme supports regeneration and development within Eastbourne, as Councillor Simmons outlined. Directly within the business case, it supports net additional jobs of 26, including 10 direct jobs, 10 indirect jobs, and 6 construction jobs. It brings back into use this currently underutilised building. It completes the development of Devonshire Park. It supports the sort of conference offering within Eastbourne, as well as supporting tourism, as well as supporting the hotel trade and those other industries that are complementary. The only thing we were flagging was that with a benefit cost ratio of 2.0 to 1, which is high value for money and is as required by the LEPS assurance framework, if there were any downside, it could tip the scheme into a medium value for money category. That being said, there were a number of benefits that were quite difficult or weren't able to be monetized or quantified, as is often the case with regeneration schemes around sort of broader social benefits and impacts.
Okay. So
thank you, Simon. Does that?
Yeah, it still doesn't answer my question, I suppose, a little bit, in that my concern being that if we're using getting building funds money, which is about getting building and getting the economy up and running, I'm not so sure a convention centre gets the economy running at the moment. That's harsh, but that's if we're short of money. I'd certainly agree with that, with perhaps something else, maybe LGF or something else. But
I think Simon, yes, and Suzanne. Just to add, obviously these boards were prioritised through the strategic board, so we just need to obviously they've gone through the federated board process and then they've come to strategic board, and now they're coming to us as the accountability board. But Steve or Suzanne, one of you wanted to say something.
Just after you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Steve. Sorry, it's just to come in on a similar point as you, Sarah, that the role actually of accountability board today is to ensure that the process of assessment has been done correctly and that the project does comply with the requirements and assurance framework around BCR. The actual selection of projects is a function of strategic board and not actually of accountability board. So just to be clear what your role is today.
And my final point was just that it isn't only there for as a conference facility, but as a more flexible space as well, to enhance the visitor experience within Eastbourne.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Finch, thank you for your patience.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, I was curious really on the last project, the SELEP one, in terms of the low certainty. And this question really to Steve Bishop, if I may, which is just to seek clarification in that low certainty. Is that simply a timing issue, a work detail program issue, or is it just the rollout program issue? I'm just curious as to how you get to a low certainty when you demonstrate a very high benefit cost ratio, for example. It's more of a curiosity than anything.
Thank you, Councillor Finch. The low certainty isn't in response to any of the multiple choice options given. It's as a result of a benefit cost ratio not being provided by the scheme promoter. That being said, our assessment is still that it presents high value for money. That has been demonstrated previously in a successful bid to the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sports. But because the funding allocation from GBF is above 2 million, it is not exempt from having to determine a benefit cost ratio.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Sarah. Just a quick question, which was on in relation to it's actually more of a sort of follow-on question rather than a sort of directly related to what Steve's reported. On the observer building, the Hastings Observer Building, there's a proposal here for GBF of 1.71, I think it is, million. Now, I think there have been 2 tranches, or a first tranche approved, and then a second tranche subject to repayments. each of 1.75 million from Growing Places Fund for that. And I just wasn't quite clear if that second tranche is would still be needed if this is approved or not. It's, as I say, it's a genuine question and a sort of follow-on one rather than linking directly to Steve's assessments of value for money, etc.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Yeah, Steve.
Thank you. Yes, this is for a second or a larger phase of work. The building is over a number of stories, and this supports sort of fuller completion of the or delivery of the vision for the whole building in the centre of Hastings. So we have only assessed this in terms of its additionality of the GBF component. So this isn't a second wave of funding for a slight modification to what's already previously been allocated funding. This is real additionality in terms of the jobs and the productivity outcomes.
Sure. I think my question was, does that then substitute for the additionality of a second GPF loan, or is the second GPF loan also needed in addition to the additionality of GBF, if you see what I mean? That might be a question for colleagues from East Sussex as much as anything else. And as I say, a genuine question, not one with ill intent.
No, thank you. Rhiannon, would you like to, or Helen?
Yeah, Helen, do you want to come in on this?
Yep. So it's my understanding that the second tranche of Growing Places funding will still be sought, and that will now help to regenerate the top floors of the building, which are going to be provided for residential use.
Okay, fine. So there'll be both tranches of GPF plus this Getting Building Fund as well. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other queries or comments? If not, I will ask the board whether you approve. I'll take it one by one. Just if you could vote on each one, show your hands, and then I'll say the next one. So, does the board approve the award of 680,000 GBF to support the delivery of the acceleration of full fibre broadband deployment in very rural or very hard to reach premises project set out as in Appendix C, which has been assessed as offering high value for money with high certainty of achieving this? Do you all agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, do you approve the award of 1,990,000 GBF to support the delivery of Britain Farm Redevelopment Learning Skills and Employment Hub project as set out in Appendix C, which has been assessed as offering high value for money with high certainty of achieving this?
Agreed.
Thank you. Do you approve the award of 1,820,000 GBF to support the delivery of the extension of the full fibre broadband rollout in Essex to reach rural and hard to reach premises project as set out in Appendix C, which has been assessed as offering high value for money with high certainty of achieving this?
Agreed.
Thank you. Do you approve the award of 3,500,000 GBF to support the delivery of fast-track business solutions for the Hastings manufacturing sector project as set out in Appendix C, which has been assessed as offering high value for money with high certainty of achieving this?
I declare an interest, so have not voted on this item.
Okay, thank you. Have we a note of that interest, Rhiannon? Yeah, okay, thank you. Do we approve the 1,600,000 GBF to support the delivery of the restoring of the glory of the Winter Gardens project as set out in Appendix C, which has been assessed as offering high value for money with high to stroke medium certainty of achieving this?
Agreed.
You approve the award of 1,713,000 GBF to support the delivery of the Observer Building Hastings Phase 1B project as set out in Appendix C, which has been assessed as offering high value for money with high certainty of achieving this?
Agreed.
Thank you. And finally, approve the award of 2,500,000 GBF to support the delivery of the extension of the existing ASLEA LFNFN project as set out in Appendix C, which has been assessed as offering high value for money with a low certainty of achieving this.
Agreed.
Thank you. And note that the award of GBF funding to the above projects is subject to sufficient GBF being received by SELEP from central government. Thank you. So item 6 on the agenda, there are several details which are considered confidential and are set out in a confidential appendix. So I would like to seek the agreement of the board to move this item towards the end of the meeting so it can be discussed. We will ask members of the public to withdraw from the meeting in order to discuss it, and then we'll bring members of the public back in to do the vote. Is that all right with everybody?
Agreed.
Good, thank you. Okay, so we'll move straight on then to item 7, which is a report to consider the withdrawal of 2 projects from the LGF programme, with the funding being reallocated to the LGF project pipeline. Howard, I'm going to hand over to you now, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this report is around the relocation of funding to the project pipeline. So 2 projects, Tilbury Riverside, which was originally awarded 2.36 million LGF, and Southend Forum 2, originally awarded 6 million LGF, are returning their money to the project pipeline. So that in total adds up to 8.36 million. Add that to the already remaining money in the pipeline of 2.1 million, we have 10.47 million pounds reallocated to the project pipeline. What this means is that there is now sufficient LGF to enable the final project of the pipeline, Colchester Grow On Space in Colchester, which has previously been awarded 3.77 million, to proceed in bringing forward a business case for consideration for funding by the board in February 2021. This means that there will be a further 6.69 million will remain unallocated until the new LGF pipeline is agreed by the strategic board at its next meeting on the 11th of December. A process was agreed at the strategic board meeting on the 2nd of October to develop a new project pipeline of LGF to reallocate any unallocated LGF. The amount of unallocated LGF may exceed 6.69 million if other existing LGF projects are unable to proceed to delivery. There is a typo in 5.3. Apologies. There's so many references to LGF, but this one slipped through, and it appears as LGP, I think, but it is LGF, just for clarity. There's lots of detail about the 2 projects returning their money, so I won't dwell on that. And I think that's all I'm going to say, Sarah, if that's okay.
Thank you very much. Do board members have any queries or comments? Councillor Woodley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say it's a shame that we've had to do this, but this is one of the major problems with COVID-19. It's had that major effect, and we had to put our hands up and said, you know, we can't continue without the support of the college as well. So hopefully it will give opportunities for somewhere else in the LEP that can take advantage of that. But there you go.
Thank you, Councillor Woodley, and I'd actually like to add my thanks as well to people for bringing these forwards projects and being so honest about that. And it's really important that in this current situation we are able to get building and get things happening as quickly as possible. So thank you very much for that, Councillor Coxall.
Yeah, I'd just like to say the same, really. I think we could have brought it slightly quicker, and as quick as we can bring projects that are failing or seem to. I think it's better to, in our whole region, to reallocate as quick as possible. I'm looking forward. We can get some projects. I agree with the same as Simon Cook. I think we do need some different projects coming through a pipeline. I know it's not this balls thing, but I think the quicker we can see that there's an option that we can't afford these. I think I would like to have brought it before this board meeting at a quicker stage, but it just made sure that everyone was happy, and that's why it took that I missed the last one. I would like to have allocated it previously and given it back the last board meeting, but I'm sorry, but we got there in the end to give it back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, East Sussex is very supportive of the recommendations being made here, but I think also respecting the integrity of board members in their conduct, and that is to be appreciated.
So absolutely, thank you very much. So unless there are any other comments, I'd like to move to agree the reallocation of the total award of LGF to the Tilbury Riverside project of 2,360,000 to the LGF project pipeline. And I see hands to agree that. Thank you. Agree that the £52,595 LGF already transferred to Thurrock Council to date in relation to the Tilbury Riverside project must be returned to the SELEP accountable body. I'll see your hands on that. Thank you. Agree the reallocation of the total award of LGF to the Southend Forum 2 project of 6 million to the LGF project pipeline. Thank you. Agree that the £2,106,652 LGF already transferred to the Southend on Sea Borough Council to date in relation to the Forum 2 project must be returned to the SELEP accountable body. Thank you. Agree that the LGF fund in recommendations 2.1.2 and 2.1.4 LGF funds being returned to accountable body are to be returned to the SELEP accountable body in advance of the end of this calendar year in order that the potential project pipeline projects can be advanced. Thank you very much. Okay, now I'd like to move on to item 8, which is the SELEP COVID-19 Business Support Fund. And this is a report to consider the award of the £2.4 million to the COVID-19 Business Support Programme. I'm going to hand over now to Jo. Thank you very much. I thought I couldn't see you on the screen for a minute, Jo. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. I've just switched on. Morning, everyone. I'm Jo Simmons. I'm Business Development Manager for SELEP. And as Sarah says, I'm just going to pull out the key points of the paper that you have in your pack relating to this £2.4 million of repurposed Growing Places Fund for the Business Support Fund COVID-19. The areas of focus for the fund, the need to go out to procure providers for delivery, and the generic eligibility criteria were agreed by the SELEP board at their last meeting on the 2nd of October. And today we're seeking accountability board agreement to firstly agree the procurement approach now, secondly for delegation of authority to the SELEP chief exec for the award of contracts and also to amend values of up to £100,000. And thirdly, for the allocation of £35,000 for a SELEP contract manager who will be shared with the COVID-19 Recovery Skills Fund. So the programme will deliver 3 individual business support schemes, which will be targeting the visitor economy, pre-starts and startups, and the digitisation of businesses. And we're proposing to go out to procurement for these by creating a single tender framework with 3 individual lots, with each lot reflecting each of those 3 support schemes, so that we attract providers with the relevant skills and experience for each of the 3 focus areas that have been agreed. The eligibility criteria will apply to all 3 lots. This will include, but is not limited to, let-wide delivery, additionality to the current business support landscape, alignment with our Growth Hub service, and the need to demonstrate value for money. And business responding to each lot can be an individual organisation or a consortium of providers, and any bidder may bid for up to 2 lots. We propose that the bids will be evaluated by an independent evaluation panel made up of individuals with no conflicts of interest from the Secretariat, local authorities and the South East Business Hub. And so that we can contract swiftly and get the programmes up and running, we're recommending that the final sign-off of contract awards sits with the SELEP Chief Exec. So if approval is received today, we can then swiftly initiate the procurement process. We'll get onto that as quickly as possible, and that will enable us to go out to procurement in and throughout November. And because what we are proposing for this fund is a 4-week window for submission of bids, and this is specifically to allow for consortiums to come together and develop their proposal if they so choose, so that we can accommodate local providers. And this time frame means that we will seek to award contracts in December. The approach will generate 3 delivery contracts, all of which will be in place for a maximum period of 24 months from the same start date. And we're proposing this because this means that once the contracts are in place, we can roll out the programs one after the other and as quickly as possible from December onwards. Plus the 24-month window is specifically to provide contingency time should any of the programs need it, and in agreement with SELEP, to accommodate any massively significant or unforeseen changes to business support requirements that may be brought about by COVID-19 in the future. So that concludes my summary, Sarah. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Jo. Do people have any questions or comments on any of this? Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Sarah. I think we all support the overall aims and approach, but there are a couple of questions. One is when we had the strategic board meeting, there was a lot of emphasis, I think, from a whole range of those who spoke about getting this moving as quickly as possible. Part of the fund is launched on this in December, but there's still parts which are not. And I think the emphasis, as I say, at that last meeting was very much on moving quickly. I'm not sure that we've the timetable we have here fully responds to what was said at the strategic board. So I would wish to query that. There was also, it's a relatively, well, secondary point, but not completely minor. I think there have been various suggestions that came within, certainly from within KMEP, as to whether, again, in the interests of moving quickly on things, that we might look to a secondment rather than a recruitment in terms of the project manager role. But all, as I say, with the aim of getting this moving as quickly as possible. And I'm not sure we've actually changed very much from what came to the strategic board.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Jo.
Thank you, Councillor. Regarding the time frame, we need to balance the feedback in the development of the proposals, which was specifically around how do we get local providers to be able to bid and be successful to deliver the programs. And so that has resulted in this 4-week window for the bidding process, the procurement process, which does eat into a bit of the time. We've tried to balance that in terms of the rollout of the programs by the proposal to have a single tender framework looking to contract for all 3 projects with the same start date. So what that does is it gets the contracts up and established and the providers ready to go, which can then enable us to roll out the programs as swiftly as possible, one after the other. Noting the breakdown of the delivery dates that were presented to board on the 2nd of October, and I think this might be also what you might be referring to. It does specifically, I think, for the visitor economy, which is where a lot of the feedback has come from, because that programme proposes, will have 2 components to it, one after the other. The first is the absolute need to get this one out in December, because the first part of the programme is about supporting visitor economy businesses through the winter, so getting the grants out to them so that they can survive the winter and remain resilient because they've lost their summer season. And then the second part is deliberately programmed for early next year, February time, which is the component of the programme which looks at relaunching a new season, so rebooting the visitor economy next year. So I understand that it can be misleading. You read it and it looks like it's sort of scheduled for to start next February, but it's very much on the back of the winter resilience piece of the support. Regarding the secondment, that was absolutely noted at the KMEP board. which I attended. But we do have to create the post in the first instance to allow for that to be filled in some way or another. And so that is what we need to go ahead and do first.
So it's still a possibility on the table.
It's still a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That was a very useful discussion, actually, especially given the current situation with COVID and how the visitor sector, in particular the hospitality sector, is really facing an incredibly challenging time. So thank you for that, Councillor Goff and Joe. Okay, unless anybody has any other questions. Oh, Simon, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. We'd be stupid to not be giving some money out to help people. So let me just say that first. Can we be sure that this fund is not going to duplicate what is already pretty perplexing and amazing array of different support that is going out to business at the moment? If we can be really sure that this is going to target where there are gaps, can you just give me a sense that that's where that's focused and how we know that for sure?
Yes, I'll try. Thank you, Simon. And I absolutely agree with you. The business support landscape is massively busy, very complicated. And one of the biggest challenges we have around it is that the numerous schemes, the last snapshot that we took in informing this fund showed just 56 schemes operating just in the SELEP region alone. And they all have different start and end dates. And I think that's important to your point, Simon, because whilst it's an absolute, it's a criteria for each of the 3 programmes to provide additionality and not duplication. Part of being able to do that is to be able to run back to back with similar schemes, which again has influenced the time frame for the rollouts. So in terms of the areas of focus, I'm confident that when we're looking at providing deep support for businesses to digitise, that is a gap from the analysis we did of the current landscape. Supporting pre-starts and startups from January onwards will be a follow-on scheme that will fill the gap there. And the visitor economy, the demand is through the roof. And so you could argue about duplication, but I think that there is clearly a case for additionality on the limited amount of support that we have at the moment for the visitor economy businesses in SELEP. And that's proven by the ERDF 100% grant scheme, which was launched in September and was oversubscribed before it even went live. So hopefully that provides you with the confidence that the analysis has been done, and it's about the rollout, the timing of the rollout of the schemes and how they align with what's already out there.
Thank you, Joe. Rosemary.
Joe, it was just a query. Obviously, it's quite important for.
I can't hear you, Rosemary.
Oh. Okay, don't worry. I'll type it.
Sorry, it's just your volume was very low. We could hear that you were trying to speak, but it was your volume. Do you want to try again?
Is that better?
Yes.
Just to say, it's very important, obviously, for the skills piece and for the employability for future graduates. Obviously, that we have thriving businesses in the area. So, I'm working with a lot of local businesses and with the Chamber of Commerce in London and the South East to try and get that value chain between graduates into businesses. So I was just going to request, it'd be really helpful to see a copy of the schemes that you've audited, if you were able to share that, because it's helpful for me then to disseminate further.
I'd be happy to, Rosemary. It was an appendix to the board paper, which I can send you the link for.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so unless there are any other questions, I'd like to ask the board whether you agree the award of 2.4 million to the programme based on the case for investment set out in section 4 of the report. Can I see your hands, please? If you agree, thank you. Agree the proposed procurement approach for the delivery of the 2.365 million through a new single tender framework comprising 3 individual lots. Thank you. Agree to the £35,000 of the 2.4 million funding pot to be used for project management resource. Thank you. Agree to delegate authority to the SELEP Chief Executive Officer to sign off the awarded contracts for each project within the programme. Thank you. Agree to delegate authority to the SELEP Chief Executive Officer to amend the value of the funding identified for each project within the programme by up to £100,000 if so required, subject to the total value of the investment remaining within the total 2.365 million budget allocated to the programme, the minimum project benefits set out in Table 1 still being achieved, and ensuring the maximum value of the project's package included in the programme does not exceed 1 million. Thank you. And obviously we need to note that the procurement of the projects included within the programme will be completed in accordance with the Essex County Council Procurement Advice and Regulations. Okay, so thank you very much. Now, just to move on to item 9, just to note that the next meeting is scheduled for Friday, the 20th of November. And at that meeting will be a very full agenda. We're looking at 26 projects, as you know, so please bear with us as we go through all of that detail. And I suspect that the board packs will be quite full. So item 10 is, as far as I'm aware, there's no urgent business. I'm just looking at officers for confirming that, or anybody else. Okay, thank you. And obviously you will have considered the confidential appendix considered under item 5, hopefully you will have noted. So I will hand over to Suzanne now in terms of process, please.
On mute, aren't I? Okay, so we're moving into a confidential section of the meeting now. So I need to first of all check with the voting members of the board that they are happy, as we have done in the past, that all the supporting officers of the 6 upper tier can remain in the audience for this item. Are you all happy to? Okay, happy to go ahead on that basis. Yep, that's lovely. Okay, thank you very much. So on that case, officers from the 6 upper tier authorities, supporting officers are able to stay. Other members of the public will now need to leave. If you are a member of the public, if you come out of the meeting, what will happen is we will then ask you to come back in for the decision. For that to enable to happen, sorry, it's all a bit clunky because this is virtual and we can't just show you out and call you back in. What you need to do is leave the meeting, then give us a couple of minutes, go back in through your registration link, and you will be held in a waiting room because we will lock the meeting. So if I could ask those members of the audience who are not officers of the 6 upper tier authorities to leave now, please. So just bear with me, guys, because we have got somebody there. Okay, so I think we are good. Amy, can you lock the meeting and stop the recording, please?
Yep, can confirm the meeting is
not rejoin. We're back recording again. If we can just give it a couple of minutes, if you don't mind, board members.
What happens? Do you send them an email saying you can come back in?
Well, no, we ask them to come back and go back through the registration link sort of straight away, and then they've been held. If they were there, they would have been held in a waiting room. So it's slightly more clunky, unfortunately, virtually, because I can't just stick my head around the door and say you can come back in now. Okay, the meeting is now public. We are recording. The recording will be put on the website, and I think we've just had someone that's just rejoined. The numbers have just flicked over. So yes, we have people that have rejoined us. So I think we are now back in public session. Thank you, board.
Thank you. Okay, so I am asking the board to note the latest position on the delivery of this project. Noted, hopefully, and to agree a further update report should be presented to the board in February 2021. Do we agree that? Or have I crashed? Yes, okay. Everything's gone very slow from my angle, but I hope you can still hear me. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. As far as I'm aware, there are no as far as I'm aware, sorry, can you see me or hear me?
Yeah, you're
okay,
fine,
sorry
Sarah.
about
Yeah, we can hear you.
Fine, Sarah. Yeah.
My internet's gone very weird. Broadband needed. Item 13 then, urgent exempt business. Is there any? No. So thank you. I would like to bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much for your input. As I warned you, next meeting will be slightly longer, but it's really important that we get these projects moving and get us building as quickly as possible. So thank you very much for all of your time. Good to see you all, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Cheerio, Sarah.